Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 6, day 2. I apologize. Somehow the first half of class did not get recorded. So I'm doing this for you. This is like that, here's what you missed on Glee. Just giving yourself the opportunity to, giving me the opportunity to tell you what was said in the first half of class. So the first teaching block or tool of mental muscle is meditation. So you're going to look at in the book, and it talks about relax, release, allow. Relax into this moment, release everything from the past, all of your future intentions, and just allow what wants to come up here. Then I wrote this thing: I come to the silence to hear. I listen for the thoughts without words. A feeling creeps into my awareness. You are there in the feeling. I smile, I laugh, I cry, I know. So use these words to just bring you to that place of understanding that there is a place in mind where it's not about the words, it's not about your desires, it's not about what you want to do in the future. It's really about just listening, and listen to the thoughts without words. A feeling creeps into my awareness, something that comes from within that you don't even have to understand or explain away. You are there in the feeling. There's a part of you that goes beyond your critical thinking. There's a part of you that goes beyond even what you're feeling, what your emotions are, because there's a part of you that knows. You can smile, laugh, cry, succeed, fail, all the different all the myriad of things that you could possibly be in life. There's something that goes beyond there, and that's the knowingness of who you are. So this week we're talking about patience. And I said it on Tuesday, true patience is knowing. So how did it go the past few days? Have you found that you're a patient person? And here's a big one. Does your patience match inside and out? Raul gave a great, I brought him into the conversation early, and he talked about this thing inside that feels one way but shows up on the outside. And we talked about how Raul, by all intents and purposes, seems like an extremely patient, calm person, and yet it describes it on the inside. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that. So does your patience match inside and out? And we talked about buttons. What buttons push your tolerance? Like, what buttons show up in your life? People talked about insincere people, stupid people, people that waste your time. Lot about people. The past that I wasn't able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. Myself, that I'm impatient with my own abilities. All the different things. What makes you impatient? And the question is, do you notice? Notice is important. It's important to notice what causes my impatience to flare up. What things go on in my life where I suddenly am impatient? One of the things I talked about was in the book about the guy that was taking mental muscle, and the first day basically shared with us, he's a very patient person. This is going to be a breeze. This week is going to be a breeze. Patience is like my thing. And then when he came back 2 days later, he was like all aflutter with impatience. And he said, no, I don't want to be patient, because what I realized was I'm not a patient person. I'm apathetic. My life has been so disappointing, I've given up on it. So in giving up, I've become apathetic. Well, while it may appear to be patience, what it really is that I don't have any passion for my life. And he wrote, I just want to knock down walls. He wanted to get rid of his patience and find passion again. So what I asked everybody to do was give me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how patient are you? How patient are you? And I can't ask you to do that for me right now, but for yourself, where are you in patience? We had a lot of fives actually, sevens and eights, a couple of threes and fours. So it's all over the map. But for you, how patient are you? I would say I'm a pretty patient person. Um, I think I think when it comes to most things in life, I am like an 8 or a 9. However, I find the biggest issue for me is the patience I have with myself. Why am I not further? Why don't I do this? And we talked also about the idea that sometimes procrastination leads to impatience, because when you procrastinate and you don't get things done, you've got this like list of things that's yours to do that you still have to do. And so you become impatient because there's a time factor, but that is in the second half and you will get it. I had to have patience today when I noticed that my thing wasn't recording. Now I could get all annoyed and, God, why did that happen? I was so clear to start this today, to unmute myself, to give my visibility, and then press record. I did it all. Why it didn't record, I don't know. But those moments that happen in life that push your buttons or that could cause you to be impatient, that's pretty important to really get clear on what happens. Two of the definitions: patience is a state of endurance under difficult times, and patience is persevering in the face of provocation without becoming annoyed or upset. Meaning patience based on things. What provokes you? Are there things that cause you to lose your shit? Are there things that cause you to lose your last nerve? Something that Ron talked about, right? I've lost my last nerve. What is that? Persevering in the face of provocation without becoming annoyed or upset. So patience as something we are as opposed to something we do. It's not about being patient based on what the world shows us. This makes me impatient. So it's not, conditions don't cause impatience. I don't even know if I said that on the first time around. Conditions do not cause impatience. Unfortunately, how you relate to those conditions is what causes the impatience. And how you relate to those conditions is solely based on the beliefs that causes the relationship you have to those conditions. So what would it mean to be a patient person? Well, it would mean that you actually knew what you were. You knew who you were. Because patience will always back itself into an understanding of who I am. When I know who I am, I can be more patient. Can you imagine God, if you think of God as this perfect beingness, this perfect consciousness, that state of Christ consciousness? Can you imagine that being impatient? Why? What for? Life is always unfolding perfectly. So how can I be impatient? I want it now. I want it now. No. I talked a little bit about Jesus in the money chamber at the temple, where he was totally impatient and just threw all the tables over. And I did not reference the Bible. I referenced Andrew Lloyd Webber's Jesus Christ Superstar. Having played that role twice, it was one of my favorite moments. That the money changer thing. They sang the song, "Hear my no, hear my words, I can hardly speak. Hear my eyes, I can hardly see." And it was all this music, all the beggars and everything screaming, while all the money chambers are doing this whole thing, all the people selling their wares. And Jesus walks in and sees the disparity between the people laying on the ground dying and the people making all this money, and he goes ballistic. Now, what we're supposed to understand in that moment is that Jesus became human in that moment. Jesus became less than in that moment. That impatience was somehow, or him losing his temper, anger, was somehow wrong. And yet, for me, what I know and what we teach in religious science is that it's all part of the process. It's all part of the unfolding of exactly what life is meant to be. And it's not that it's a mistake to be impatient. It's not that it's a mistake to lose our temper, to get angry. No, it's more about the fact that there is that in me that has brought forth this relationship between what I know and what I'm experiencing, and it's causing the anger, which is an emotion. It's causing the impatience, which is also an emotion, a feeling, and that's okay. It's teaching me something. So we have to be okay with all of this in order to back it up, to understand, well, here's Christ consciousness. Here's the absolute truth of who I am. It's funny because after that whole moment of feel my eyes, and then people start to crawl all over Jesus. And there's a moment when there's like 30 people all over me trying to get a piece of me and trying to get me to help them and heal them. And Jesus just says, heal yourself, throws his arms out, and everybody disappears. And he's left on stage alone, and he collapses. And he collapses in tears. And of course, Mary Magdalene catches him and holds him, and he falls asleep. Letting out all that energy, all that anger, falling asleep, meaning it's overwhelming. It has taken me to a place where I have to just escape. That's what patience and impatience does to us sometimes. That's what impatience does to us sometimes. It literally steals our energy. So, spiritually speaking, patience is something inherent within you, easily attained when you know who you are. Patience is an action from truth, while impatience is an action based on conditions. So, if you're in the truth of life, patience just shows up. If you are relating to the relative world conditions of life in such a way that you are allowing those things dictate your feelings, now you're impatient because you're coming from the conditions. One of the things I wrote in the book is way too often we stop short of a goal because we're impatient. We give up our intention because we aren't willing to allow it to grow and evolve in its perfect divine time. And yet, if I really believed my life was unfolding perfectly, patience would be easy. So there's a question. Do you absolutely believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that your life is unfolding perfectly? Or are you still trying a little bit to control it? Do you still want to be in charge of how it unfolds? I read some of the quotes from Mental Muscle from the book, which I love. One of them was, I feel like people should know better. How can you be patient with these people? But then again, people are just conditions in your life. How you relate to them says more about you than it does about them. Another one, I'm always running late, and so I'm always frustrated. It's hard to be patient when you're running late. Yeah, I get that. It's hard to be patient when you're running late. But why are you running late? What is it that causes you to be a late person? What is it that causes you to always be under the gun of a time constraint? It's a good question. And there's going to be more time to answer that as these weeks go by, certainly as we get to procrastination. So we also talked about the line between being patient and blowing up. And Raul brought up some great stuff about that. When all of a sudden you just blow up. Why? Well, the reason why you blow up is because you haven't dealt with what was going on as it was going on. And I know I'll say it later in the program, but we're reading a book right now, The One Thing, and it really helps you to understand, what is your one thing to deal with right now? What is the one thing I could do right now that by doing so would make everything else around me easier? Well, the answer to that is being present and dealing with what's right in front of me. When I am present, when I deal with what's mine to deal with and don't put it away, don't press it down, don't save it for another day when now there's a million things that are all just waiting for me to deal with, and that's when I blow up. What if I'm just present and deal with what's mine to deal with on a moment by moment basis? Impatience is a should. I should have done that. I should have been doing this. Oh, I should do this. Patience is an I am. I know who I am, and here's what's mine to do. So then I went to communication, and I had everybody I started talking about the blogs. And Christy, I talked about Christy's blog, 4 Days in the Hospital, allowed her to take patience to a new dimension. New dimension happens, right? Dee knows that too. We all know that from being in the hospital. And then being patient while being patient. And I did not share this morning, but this came up to me, just came to me now. Being patient while being a patient. When I had stage 4 cancer, I went from March all the way to August being a patient and having to have patience, being put in tubes with laser beams coming at me. Right here is where they took out all the lymph nodes and had to literally radiate this area. And spending 10 minutes in that tube was like a lifetime each time. And boy, did I have to learn patience. Thank God for Donna Michael's song, God is Holding Me, because I played that. They let me play that. They played it over the loudspeaker for me so that I could make it through. And just hearing her sing, God is holding me, I'm held in love. I'm held in grace. God is holding me. I got the understanding that I could be patient because I am always held in the arms and in the embrace of the truth of who I am, this energy, this love, since it's Valentine's Day, celebrating that love. So thank you to Christy for sharing that blog, and good for Christy too, that she is through that, healthy, everything is fine. And I bless you and I love you, and I'm glad that Reverend Joyce visited you and helped you to remember that we all love you and that we're all there with you going through everything, because really, it's all of us. And you said you had a cat named Patience who lived for 17 and a half years, and just saying her name calmed her down. Tiffany, spiritual jet lag, the gap of time between having a major spiritual shift and when you realize who you've become. So that's a big one, you know? I love that concept, spiritual jet lag. All of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, how did I become this? I know I have that sometimes. I wake up, I'm like, how did I become Reverend Dr. James Mellon when I started out as quite a little shit of an actor? Arrogant, obnoxious. It was all about me, but not in the good way. How did I become this? And it's funny because tonight I have this 40th reunion of West Side Story, and many of these people have not seen me in 40 years. So for them, it's going to be that spiritual jet lag. They're going to remember me as I was at 25, and here I am at 65. And there's a big gap between who I was and who I am. However, who I am is always who I was. I just didn't know it. And in not knowing it, I succumbed to a lot of the conditions of my life, became a victim, fought back all the time. I was quite a fighter. So I loved that Tiffany came up with that idea of spiritual jet lag. And here's the thing about patience. There's who I was, here's who I am. Very often we're over here going, I want to be this person. Come on and make it happen. And patience is actually, in retrospect, understanding and knowing the truth of who you are. I'm not impatient. I'm not impatient now. From 65 to 105. That was 25 to 65, now 65 to 105. I'm just going to let it be what it's going to be. Just allow my life to unfold and grow and become exactly who I am meant to be. And I don't mean meant to be by something out there, but who I am already as I allow it to come forward. And she said, you know, she spent some time seeing where she was impatient. This is Tiffany. Impatient when I feel that my time is being wasted. One of those buttons. Impatient with myself. Never trusting there is joy in the journey. My journey, she says, is being patient with me. And I asked Tiffany to talk about it. And Karen Anzalone said the same thing. I'm most impatient with myself and where I am in my life, as though I should be somewhere else. I should have done better. She wrote, who would want to read my blog? I'm somebody that did not do all the things I wanted to do in life. Well, you know what? Everyone has a should. Everyone has something that they can look back on and say, I should have been that. I could have done that. But you know what? You didn't. And there's a reason. And I don't know what that reason is, and you may not know what that reason is, but the truth is, there's a reason why everything has happened. There's a reason for everything under the sun. Isn't that a line in some song? There is a reason. What's that? Oh, it's the Turtles. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a reason, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. I actually think that's a Bible quote. So there is a reason. And it's because life is unfolding perfectly. Whatever your journey has been, yes, you've dictated what it is. Yes, you've decided where you're going and what path you're going to take. Yes, you've made that right turn abruptly, and then this happened. But in truth, it's still unfolding perfectly. And you know what? It is right now. And you know what? It's going to be tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day after that. And as soon as we really get clear on that, then life has less a chance of getting in there and making us impatient, so much so that we do not stay awake to the truth of who we are. Orestes talked about being patient, trying to teach an 87-year-old person, his mother, how to use a smartphone. And then we talked about, things tipping us over the edge. But I liked what Orestes wrote when he said, when I'm hungry and when I'm tired, it's harder to be patient, which brings up the idea of self-care. You must be willing to take care of yourself. You must get enough sleep. You must eat the right foods. You must exercise. You must keep your mind straight. Keep your mind clear. You must, when you wake up, be awake, stay awake. You are all awake people. You are all people that now, after last week, are present. You get to stay present. You must stay present. As the Buddha says, once you are awake, stay awake. Do not go back to sleep. So this is pretty much where we ended up. Lindsay says she's impatient when other people don't do their job up to their standards. So there's a thing about justifying your impatience. Impatience leads to what should have happened. It is so easy to justify what should have happened here and being impatient about it. But this is what happened. So how do we reconcile the difference between what should have happened and what did happen? Well, I'm right back to what I said before. By knowing absolutely that right where I am, life is unfolding perfectly. Period. End of sentence. That's the way it works. So there you go. Now you've got part 2 to go listen to. And when you listen to part 2, it'll take up right where I just left off. So have a great Valentine's Day, everybody. Much love to you all. Namaste.